We have a panel of people who didn't start they weren't born in 1970, never mind start their careers in 1970, which is great. I'm going to just ask them to tell us a little bit. This is interactive as much as you so desire. We're going to talk amongst ourselves because when we started kind of going through everything, we realised we had a lot in common. Then we're going to come down to some tables and we're going to try and get feedback from you guys. You know, if this is going to happen next year, how can we improve it? What did you learn? What can you take away? What can we do to make this perfect? You know, 3 days, I realise that, and do it in the Bahamas. Yeah, okay, I'm for that. But apart from that, so let me introduce you to Andrew. He works at Paul Smith at the moment, so who wouldn't want to work at Paul Smith? And he was at Tom Ford before. How did you get there?
Good question. Thank you for that presentation as well. That was amazing. I hope that my career will be as colourful as that. So first of all, I think it was really through contacts I made at university and contacts I made through the Worship Company of Weavers. They were fantastic at setting up events like this and lunches that encourage you to talk to people at industry. I think that's how I sort of really pushed it. I met a contact at one of our Royal College of Art's Work in Progress shows, and that's how I met someone at Paul Smith. And then at Tom Ford, it was through the Weavers lunch that I met a designer at Moxon at Heald Brothers, and she put me in touch with someone at Tom Ford who was looking for a fabric developer. So really, I think encourage...
Contacts, you cannot stress. I hope you've all got your cards and given them to at least 10 people. Honestly. It is, it really...
Definitely.
You know. And Coral works in Beggs in Ayr, and you have a very busy life working in the weaving industry.
Yes.
But you've had quite a variety of jobs leading up to that, or you've had a lot of different placements.
Yes, I would say things were slightly different for me in the sense that when I was at the Glasgow School of Art, unfortunately, I did a few placements when I was there and did live projects, but I was never really one to, you know, win things, or I didn't really gain a lot of bursaries, unfortunately, which everyone, you know, can't win all the time. So I think things really started to kind of come alive for me after I'd graduated, and I think my drive was I just really wanted to get into the industry and basically work. So as soon as I left GSA, I kind of started to explore other routes that maybe weren't design-led. So I actually worked for Harvey Nicks for 3 months and did the Christmas window. And while I was there, I kind of heard about this bursary programme which takes place every year in Increasing Galloway called Spring Fling. And they were able to give me a £1,000 bursary, and I was able to rent a loom and started working from home again. And I basically kind of created almost like a kind of sister collection to my original graduate collection, and began to reapply for things now that I'd done more work. I also gained employment at a carpet factory, which wasn't really what I sent out to do, but it just was a job opportunity in the textile industry, and I felt it was important to do. From that, I actually heard that Alex Begg were now looking for a possible graduate to work with them. I was able to get an interview. Luckily, the head designer there took a chance on me and felt that I fitted the role, and then through the Worship Company of Weavers, I was given a year's work placement funded partly by them, and I was then able to stay with them for up until now, so I've been there for 3 years now. So slightly different to Andrew, but...
And you went straight into that. Andrew, you went to the Royal. Why did you decide to do a master's?
So I did my BA in Scotland, which was amazing, great introduction to the textile industry, but I really felt that I needed more. I really wanted to move to London. I wanted to know more about fashion. I wasn't really ready to go into the world. I wanted to further my learning. Right. And the Royal College of Art, luckily, really helped with that.
And was that partly confidence? I don't mean to be
rude,
but you know, do you feel that you weren't confident to go out into the world of work.
Yeah, I think so. I honestly think being in London helped
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, definitely.
Naomi, you didn't. You went straight from university in a small place, because I happen to know a lot about Amy because I taught her, so, I mean, hand in her some great success. And you took a different route altogether.
Yeah, so I was, looking back, I think I was quite lucky. I think I was in the right place at the right time. Sheila Mary was my lecturer in third year. So when I was in my fourth year, you were looking for an assistant, and obviously I was desperate for that job. So straight after university, I went to work with Sheila Mary for about 3.5 years. Worked in her consultancy business, was given a vast amount of responsibility, really gave me a lot of confidence in my own ability.
Before she started, she had to get to China by herself.
Yeah, I think I put that in my, The first official day at work was travelling to Shanghai to go and buy yarn at a trade fair. I was petrified, I didn't let on.
No.
I kept all that under wraps. For 3.5 years I was exposed to this industry, and we worked with a lot of different clients. And then knitwear had always been my specialist area at university, and I wanted to learn more about the manufacturing process. We'd done a lot of design work at Crothers, but we'd never actually done a lot of manufacturing. So a job came up at Johnson's of Elgin, based in their knitwear factory in Hawick, and I applied for that and was successful and worked there for 5 years, basically as a designer of the Johnson's range, but also really as a product developer for lots of many high-end brands. And I did a lot of problem solving in that role. I worked a lot on the factory floor with people who have got the most amazing skills, so I learned masses in that role. And then this year decided to set up my own consultancy business. Obviously I'd had the experience with Sheila Mary, I knew what that could be like, I knew what that way of working was like. So, own consultancy now, specialise in knitwear design, but recently I've also done web design. I offer marketing, I offer colour, I offer branding, I basically do anything. I've had, quite a different route, I think, into the...
And why do you think, you've gone to web design?
Yeah.
Is that because you're just willing to say yes? Put your hand up? And what?
No, I did my own website, and I've always been interested in graphics and layout, and I'm probably a frustrated graphic designer at heart. I probably should have pursued that earlier on in my career, but it's just, for me, the design process can be applied to lots of different elements, and the same process, it can be applied to web design. And it's led me into a different area, and it's also opened me up to different industries. So I'm not just doing websites for textile people. So I just feel it's broadening my horizons a wee bit.
And Danielle, you've taken a print route to your career, and you're not only designing, printing in Macau, you also responsible for selling,
Yes.
and you're also working as a freelance print designer. So you're a busy person.
Yes. So my job is a lot about time management. As I say, I've got all these different areas that I work in. So I try to set aside a day a week to do my pure fashion design work, which I love, and then that sort of goes into the weekend because there's never enough time to draw enough and produce enough designs. And then with the design and sales that I do for Macau, I kind of break up my year over sort of a 10-month period. I have, say, 2 months where I'm working on doing our colourways and our design work to get that ready, which is then sent to the mills. And then the rest of the time, I'm driving around the country, selling our designs directly into retail shops, which sell to the homemaker. So I'm picking up feedback all the time from them, what's selling, what's not, why does that work for you and why it doesn't. And where time management comes in, I've got very different deadlines to work for, so I might find that I've got to go on a sales trip to Norfolk for Macau, which is lovely, but at the same time, I've got a fashion design deadline and I've got to arrange for the courier to send my designs to my hotel, take my sewing machine along with me, and get them made into mock garments ready for going to Premier Vision. So, time management.
Which is probably common to everybody. And to a greater or lesser extent, when we had this chat earlier, the selling aspect of it and designers being involved in selling, do not think that's a dirty word. you guys are best placed to sell your designs. And if you don't embrace that, actually, you won't be successful, because you have to be out there communicating it. Really, that is the best route, whichever way you decide to go. Don't stand back from it, because you understand, and you should be able to persuade, if you've got the market aspects right, of the person that you're targeting to buy that fabric or garment or whatever it is. You selling, don't shy away from that. It's all part of the same process. One can't, I mean, I'm sure you found that, Harriet, your business, you absolutely have to be responsible for the outcome, and otherwise you've got a retail outlet to manage.
Yes, no, we have, and I think the way that, I'm one half of Wallace Sewell, and the two of us have to, as Danielle was saying, you have to be a jack of all trades. So we have to think about the design side of things. Obviously, we have to do trade fairs to sell our products. We design and produce scarves and blankets. But also, you're not trained to be a salesperson when you're at college. So actually, you are the best person to actually sell your work, but sometimes you're the worst person, because you're incredibly, particularly when you first left college, you're very protective about your ideas, and you think that these are the most precious things that you own. But hopefully, this is just the beginning of many, many designs that you're going to do.
I don't know if you've ever been to Indigo in PV, and for those of you that are in the print, weave and knit business, I say to any students, I mean, if you're thinking of going freelance, just imagine you've done all this work and the customer comes in and goes, and it's at that pace, and then they go, you think? Nah. Maybe? Nah. And I mean, that's how it is. You cannot be precious about it, because actually you can't say, but I spent hours in that. It's beautiful. If they don't like it, they're not going to buy it. And you've got to get that step back. And yet when they do need a bit of convincing, turn around and say, well, do you know what? Because what Danielle was saying, that she's got to understand that for her customers, who've also seen the Patrick Grant effect enormously, and her, Macaura's business has just done that. Thank you, Patrick. Basically, you were telling us the sort of designs that you needed to have, that the customers want, something that's easy to...
Well, within our cotton prints, border prints are difficult, because you have to have the knowledge to know to get that border in a straight line to line up. Anything with a very strong pattern, when you're making, say, a dress, you've got to make sure that all your pattern meets up, so you don't have half a circle meeting up with another half circle. Halfway through it looks a mess. So a good seller is a design that has no pattern matching needed. And I think from the sewing bee, a lot more people are aware of that now, although not related to doing the printing. Another brilliant thing that TV advertising does, we also have a fashion side of our company, where again we're going out selling fashion ranges to the home dressmakers, to the shop that sells to the home dressmakers. And in the last couple of years, our sales of that have jumped up, because now people are aware that that is exciting and they want to get out and make their own garments. So it's brilliant.
Now, Sinclair, you've just recently, after a long career working for Johnson's, set up your own company. Yes. Perhaps not the best trading times. How have you managed to grow a business in difficult times?
Well, it started 20-odd years ago, I suppose. Being born into a textile family in a textile area, I had no choice but to do textiles.
You're talking about the wonderful borders.
And the one, Galashiels.
We're not biased.
Borders. So I was, I suppose, very lucky being born into a textile factory. We had our own, mill, and a lot of different, weaving mills and finishing mills, dyeing mills, all in the surrounding area. And I was able to spend a lot of time learning all the processes in each and every one of these different mills. So that gave me a good grounding before I took the job at Johnston's, under the watchful eye of James Sugden there, one of the best people in textiles. I learned so much. So it's a mix of learning the technical skill within the factories, but also learning from the best people. That sort of set me instead. And then a few years ago, decided that we're ready to move back to the borders, north of Scotland, and thought, you know, we were ready. We had the tools, we had the knowledge to be able to start our own business up. But it's still a, you know, a big learning curve.
Are you making accessories and you
Yes,
selling them? How are you?
It's a company called Sinclair Duncan. It's a brand making cashmere and cashmere silk luxury accessories. And within a short period of time, you know, 2 years, we're in about 40 to 50 shops in the UK.
Wow.
We have distribution in Scandinavia, agents now working in the States. So we had a good first year. We've doubled our turnover in the second year, and it's looking like we're going to do something similar next year. Had, as you've just mentioned, that you had access to most of these things other than number 11, sales, retail, mail. Hadn't a clue how to go about that. But it's amazing how quick you learn if you get out there and push and, you know.
We're not talking about neuroscience here.
No.
You know, this is not, you know, we're not operating on a brain. It is common sense, this business, and it's there for the taking if you're enthusiastic. I mean, is that not perhaps one of your strengths, that, you know, people sitting here, they're all quite keen on the business? Would you say that's a sort of a shared pleasure, the fact that we like it?
Yes.
Passionate, yeah.
That's a good word, and for passion. And Mary, you're working for Johnson's now, of course, but you also had some interesting starts to your university placements, and
Yeah, I
did that contribute?
I did.
Or how did that contribute?
Between my 2 years, my first degree, when I did my BA, I went to Laos and worked with hand weavers in Laos, and just set up worked with them, learned how they weave out there, and learned how to design for them, but kind of in a more contemporary way. So they have very intricate woven designs, which we're not selling in the UK at all. So I went over there and sort of took their skills and developed them into more contemporary European products, which was all good and well. But I found myself in Laos on my own, working and having absolutely no clue what I was doing and making it up as I went along. And I have to admit, with my current role at Johnson's, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing when I first started. And I think I've been there for 5 years, and it's only really in the last year where I've felt fully confident that I will be able to fulfill an entire day and actually know what I'm doing.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from a lot of that is that it's a combination of fear, passion, energy and enthusiasm. This is not for the faint-hearted, this industry. You will be asked to work for not vast sums of money initially, because the money isn't there. It isn't there. It's not an industry awash with money. Certain companies are richer than others, but they still don't pay well, except when you become a big brand or a brand name. And we can't all be that. But basically, it strikes me that, would you say, Andrew, you've got a good combination, passion, enthusiasm, creativity, but what about technology? You've obviously had to embrace that because you're doing print as well as weave, you're doing jacquard, so you must be quite technical. All you weavers must have technical knowledge. Is that fair? Is that vital?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like maybe I've lost it slightly from being at university, because that is when you're at your most technical and creative. But what I've learned is I've learned so much about working with mills, and all of this information, especially about fibre and fabric, is so important. I mean, even at university now, when I was at university, I wish I'd paid more attention to the yarn count of things, looking at fabric samples, looking at the weights of fabric, the quality, or just analysing why it's expensive, why it's using this yarn, what's the benefit of it. I think all of that information, especially in fashion, is so important.
Have you all got numbering calculators, converters? You can download them. I've got some spare ones, yes, I got some recently from the Woolmark company. That sort of thing is vital. You need to be able to work. You know, everybody works in different yarn count numbering systems. You need to not be going, I only work in, Yorkshire skeins woolen. Well, nobody does that anymore, but when I was born, they did. But, the new metric, what are we doing? Worsted count, cotton count, tex, decitex. You need to have that at your fingertips. Don't be frightened about that. Just download it and have it in your wallet and take it out. Look at it and say, just a minute, I need to sort that out in another system. If you don't know, ask. Nobody minds giving you answers. And I think it's much worse to pretend you do understand something. I used to be called into the boss, and because I hadn't paid attention in the lectures, I didn't understand what he was talking about. So I'd write it down, and eventually I said, please, could you just explain that? I used to go bright red. He would say, Sheila Mary, what's wrong with your neck? And I would just go bright red up to here. I started wearing polo necks up to here. It was like Dennis the Menace. I was so embarrassed. It was awful. Because I had no confidence, and he was quite an exaggerated sort of chap who would slam doors and the glass fell out, and I was... Anyway, that's another story. But, you know, the technical, pay attention, as Andrew says. I know don't let that put you off. Let it enhance you. Let it give you confidence. Be prepared. Boy Scouts have the right attitude.
I would just add that knowledge gives you don't realise how much power it gives you in a client meeting. And when you're developing products, as we all know quite well at Johnson's, and you attend a lot of client meetings, and you're maybe working with designers for big brands, and if you're able to turn around and impress them with some knowledge that they don't already have, you don't realise the power it gives you in that meeting. So you have to embrace the technical side of it. I don't think you can be a designer without.
And never throw away any notes. Any notes that you get at any point in time. I think I'll be the first to admit that sometimes I've kind of disregarded things and went back and thought, actually, this is very useful. And I think when I first started working at Alex Begg, I found that, yeah, exactly, I didn't know everything. But I was on a placement, so I wasn't expected to, and I was allowed to learn more and grow. So I think when you leave uni, especially if you're just doing your undergrad, you're going to have blank spaces that need to be filled. So I think it's acceptable for you just to, ask.
I think without technical knowledge, though, I mean, the thing that we're all here for, we all love fabric, but we all want to be able to push the fabric further, be able to develop something that's not been developed before. I mean, I work for Johnson, so something that we're doing at the moment is trying to create super lightweight fabric. So we're bringing in new yarns to try and weave at a much lighter level than we've ever done before. You have to have a really solid technical knowledge about fabric, about how it's going to react, how it's going to finish. And, you know, at some point we will make a brand new product that's never been seen before, which means that we will sell a product that nobody else has. And loads of people will come to us, and, you know, we will continue to be sort of the future of the company, really. And that's kind of what we need new designers to be doing, is to, you know, to be technically aware so they can push forward what hasn't been done.
I think that's so important. Sorry, just before you come back. This finishing business, if you understand a process, you can turn it on its head. And you can give people sound reasons. And it's what, you know, Amy and Coral were saying, that when you sit with a customer, you don't want to be telling them, well, we can't do that because we can't. You want to say to them, look, if you thought about it this way, it would come in at your price point. Or if you thought about it that way, we would do it quicker. Or the only way we could turn it around in the time frame to fit the parameters of your business. You know, you're sitting down with Andrew, who is in fact the customer here. So we better be nicer to him. But that's the other thing. You really want to be most powerful, get in the media, because if you work in the fibre industry, you've got to be nice to everybody because they're all your customers. That's the other thing I would say to you. If you start there, because then you've learned to be nice to everybody. Because if you start at the other end, you know, when Susie Menkes used to arrive anywhere, you know, it was kind of, okay, just in case, you know, she posted something bad. So at the end of the day, everybody's your customer. You've got to learn to be nice. For me, that's
I think I wanted to carry on that point, that actually, talking about the fabric developments, you know, this is your time now where you will never have this time again to develop your fabrics. And the thing is that we've all been through the system, so we all know that you've got to focus on this final project. And if possible, you want to keep that as broad as, you know, as you can, because the amount of fabrics that you experiment now, different counts, different yarns, that's your portfolio for a very long time. And also, the industry, even though it's an enormous industry, it's incredibly incestuous. Everybody, you will know the people in this room, you will probably know for a very long time. And therefore, it's really important to network, to be nice to everybody, to always be incredibly eager to do anything that you're offered. And you'll work, even if you think, I can't do that, you'll work out a way. And I think to be very, very eclectic and versatile, because, you know, this is your future,
yes.
Everybody who's here.
Yeah.
And I would agree. I've got where I am by saying yes to everything. I did a placement year. From that placement year, I did freelance work for one of the companies I work with. A year down the line, I decided that £7,000 wasn't enough to live on. I met Jane McCow from M. McCow & Co. and she said, would you like to do colourways of my designs and research some fashion trends for buying trips? I said, yes, please. At the same time, I was working for Oasis as a sales assistant. It wasn't glamorous, but I was seeing the colours they were picking and it was extra money. Then a year down again, I was complaining, oh, I don't want to do the hours here. It's not what I want to do. So again, Jane thought, oh, would you like to try doing some sales for us, taking our ranges around the country? She said, I think the customers will love the fact that you're a designer. Yeah. And they do love that. Yeah. And then 4 years later, I'm nearly full-time, much bigger sales area. We do 2 collections a year. I love it, and it's all from saying yes.
Yeah. And that includes making the coffee.
Yes.
I did a lot of babysitting for my very first boss.
It's very unglamorous. A lot of what we do is very unglamorous. I mean, I will go to meetings and I would be hauling ass across London with a bag full of samples, and it's heavy, and you'll arrive sweating and you look awful, and then you're sitting in front of Mulberry and you suddenly have to be incredibly professional and look like you always look awesome. And and then you put everything back in your bag and haul back again, and and then the next minute you're sort of scrubbing under a loom trying to find out what's wrong with it, and or you can't see something, so you're sort of leaning over and then you get oil all down the front of you, and there is a lot of this job that isn't glamorous at all, but it is so much fun because every single day is different. I think that's
everything is. Yeah, there's highs and lows in every job, and don't be put off by the place either. I did a summer in Bolton, so I can tell you it's good. But because people say, oh, I want to travel. If you really want to travel, become a BA hostess, because that you're guaranteed travel. But in this business, it is a very small world, and you will have to go beyond your comfort zone, and just say yes. Always take some sweeties though, because in the Himalayas, you can't always eat what you would like to eat. Sinclair, how did you get on with the selling? I mean, how did you make that big step? That was well out your comfort zone.
Yeah, well, to make it even more complicated, my partner is my wife, who is a speech therapist, so has no experience at all in selling either. But it's through old contacts, people I met, through the industry over the last 20 years, and it's remembering them, remembering their face, remembering to keep all their business cards, because you just never know when you might, need to call upon them again. And, that's happened on a number of occasions. One customer, gives you some information on another customer, and then domino effect starts, and, it's amazing how quickly you can build up a business.
People are helpful generally.
Absolutely.
They like young people, and I count everybody on that panel as very young. And the youthful enthusiasm is very hard to deny. It's your biggest asset at the moment. Smiling faces. And you have got, as a consultant, I can't ever, if the kids were ill, I would say, how's everything? Oh, fine. The fact that, all the issues of domestic bliss, absolutely fine. But because they don't want mournful faces. And actually one of your best assets is a smile, because nobody on this platform here will want to work with a Moni Min. Put that aside. That's for home. If you've had a Moni Min day and the budgies died, that's tough. Keep that behind you and just get on.
And the other thing, again, is as many work placements as an experience as you can have. And you always remember those ones that just, you don't want to lose, because they're lovely to have in your studio.
And that's, because after all, it invades your personal space. Whatever, it's an office or a studio, whatever, you have to get on with your colleagues, and it can decimate a business as quickly if somebody's moaning.
But the thing is, we are working in textiles, so it is a fun environment to be in potentially, so there's no need. And I know sometimes things are negative and projects don't go ahead, but I feel lucky that I get to look at beautiful yarns all day, I get to work with great companies, so there's really no reason to not have enthusiasm about it. And I think if you go in with that kind of frame of mind of you really want to be there, it really shines through, and people want you to be part of the company, because people want young people to lift them up and take them to a new place. and you really have to have that. And also working with customers. I mean, I only really do design work for the Beg & Co brand maybe 4 weeks of the year. The rest of the time I have to do work with customers, so I'm working one-on-one with customers every day, and it's really all about them and what they want and meeting their needs. So you have to be able to satisfy that and be enthusiastic and, you know, and trying to meet that price point but still getting a great product at the end of the day. But as long as you feel enthusiastic about it, then it gets you a long way.
I think happy harassment. I got my job by
Happy.
the managing director at the company at the time came and did a talk. I made sure I stood in front of him, went bright red and was terribly embarrassed, and took his card and then emailed him weekly until he responded. And then he gave me a 6-week placement, and after that they offered me a job which I turned down because it was in Scotland and I refused to live in Scotland. So they sort of created a role for me in London. And I think a lot harassment and generally being nice to people can get you quite a long
And
way.
contact.
I
Because after
harass
all-
as well, so it's fine.
You were at college with Andrew, weren't you?
I was
Yeah.
at college
And
with
you know,
Andrew, yeah.
think about it. So at the end of the day, you'd really rather work with your friends. So it's keeping in contact. You're all lucky. You've got LinkedIn, for heaven's sake. If you haven't got your profiles up there now, and don't have Hotmail accounts, anybody that's got a Hotmail account, don't admit to it. Immediately change it because it goes into people's spam box, and you don't want to be wee Lulu with, you know, pink shoes at hotmail.com.
I think
It's
also-
just not professional.
I think you need to send a few emails as well. I mean, I'm exceptionally busy. I get hundreds of emails a day. So if I have a student email me and I don't reply, it's not because I haven't read it. It's often because I've read it, thought about responding, something else has happened, and I've forgotten. Send another email. Just because after a week, if you haven't had a response, it's unusual. So just try again. I mean, potentially after about 6 emails, I'd give up, maybe. But but do remember that everyone in industry is incredibly busy, and you're not the top of our priority. But we are desperate to have you at some point. So do keep contacting.
And write it properly. Don't use. There are lots of people out there like me who like it to be written with capitals where they should be and spell checked and grammar checked.
But
I
also-
just discard it
And
if
the
it's
right
crap.
names.
The
You must
name.
have the right names.
Name is really important. It really doesn't take long to Google the name of
Yes.
the person you're writing to, and it's very irritating getting something, say, Dear Sir, Madam, or a CV that's not tailored specifically for
Yeah.
us, one that's clearly just written out for everybody. If you can't be bothered to write me a proper CV, then I can't be bothered to read it. I
Correct.
think it's the general theory.
Good.
I think
Absolutely.
just touching on that as well about portfolio type presentation, because when I finished university, like I don't think Instagram or Pinterest existed. You know, you didn't have those sort of digital profiles. Whereas now, one of the girls I mentored last year, she got an interview with somebody from WGSN because they saw her Instagram profile. So I think as well, there's other ways to communicate with people rather than just sending, obviously send emails, but you know, if you've got these sort of accounts set up online, force people to them. You know, have your own blog, have your own website. It doesn't, you know, it can all be free, but it's just another way of putting yourself out there, and visually as well, which is great.
And you have time to do that. I know you think you're busy now. You ain't seen nothing yet, believe me. You know, you have got time. I said I wasn't going to say this, but you've actually got time to change disciplines. And if you're a weaver, start printing, and you could produce a collection between now and May. Believe me, you have, if you really wanted to. Tutor might have something to say. But you have time to do something like that. That's the right, because you've got a very long time. It doesn't happen that way
No.
in the business, does it, under you?
Spread yourself out a little bit in your final year. I think it's so important. I mean, I specialised in woven textiles, and I'm so glad I did that. But at the same time, I knew that that market was niche, and I knew that I didn't want to work in a mill yet. I wanted to work in fashion. I wanted to work for a house. I knew I had to have some sort of concept of menswear, some sort of interest in pattern cutting. I knew I needed to not just be a weaver, but a printer as well, so I could understand how a collection is actually composed.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that, you know, when you're finished 4th year, I would say, you know, the fight's not over. If you want to go and do a master's, that's fine. Or if you want to try and make it on your own through funding or self-funding, or you want to start again or do different placements, you know, 4th year isn't the end of it. And if you've not quite got to where you want to be by the end of 4th year, that's not even remotely the start of it. So you know, things can take off at any point, so I think you have to just keep trying until
Another
you,
45 years.
Yeah, it's not even, I mean, I thought it was the end of the world when I finished fourth year and I had nowhere to go, but that's not even the start of my story really, so.
And start applying for jobs early, that's what I would recommend. And even if they say 2 years experience, 5 years experience, try to get your covering letter into a form that's not, I am recently graduated, I am studying. Don't start every paragraph with I. And what are your distinguishing features? I don't mean blonde and brunette, but you know, what's special about you? Why would anybody here be interested in you? And that's really important. And it takes a bit of time. Ask everybody you know to read through and say, would you hire me? I think you, and they don't have to be in the trade. They just have to say, well, you can't say that because it sounds this or that, or had you forgotten? Best CV I ever, this sticks in my mind as a girl that said, hobbies, kitchen dancing. Hello? Kate, what's kitchen dancing? Oh, I dance in the kitchen a lot. But it gave me something to talk about at interview.
Yeah, it's personality.
Personality.
And it's so important in our industry as well. So it's don't be afraid of taking an internship after you leave university. It's so vital to do that. If there are not many jobs, and I mean, we take interns, and maybe one of those interns a year is hired because, you know, not only because of their creative ability, but because they get on well with the team, they do what they're told, and they're prepared to work hard.
So it's andrew.stevenson at...
I also think don't give up. If you send your CV out, you don't hear anything, don't just drop it, because what we're thinking at the other side is, oh, they don't care enough to try and make contact. So I think that's really important. If you've made the effort to ring up, to send a lovely letter or a CV, then you followed it up. Have you received it? Were you interested in it? That means a lot. It means you've got the initiative, and that's what we want as companies.
And don't be frightened. If Sinclair offers you a job getting involved with the physicality of the manufacturing process, I also think that would be a good route for people, because not everybody is going to go in the pure creative route. There is a big career out there for people who would I be fair in saying that, Sinclair?
Well, an interesting story is we have our sales agent based in London has just graduated last year from Heriot-Watt University, and she was very interested to stay in the industry and preferred to move back down to London where her parents live. So she's actually doing that. That's given her, you know, great experience knocking the doors of the fashion houses and, you know, the smaller independent boutiques. So she's growing her network of, you know, textile people that way. She's also taken a part-time job working as a window dresser for Debenhams, and she comes up, you know, for 2-3 weeks of the year and helps us with her print design and woven design. So she's, you know, she's playing the cards. She's holding the cards. You know, she's moving on with her career, but she's looking at every different angle of what's out there until she, you know, whichever one takes off first, she may go for, or which, you know, or on the other hand, it might be the one that she enjoys most, might be the way she moves forward.
Would you say, panel, that your next job comes from who you've met on the first job?
Yeah.
Is that?
I think very few jobs I think they're officially advertised. I think the majority of people move within. I think most people get their first job through an internship. Most people find out about their next job by someone else who knows about a job.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Worshipful Weavers are exceptionally brilliant at passing on information, so definitely get in with them. And I just think, if you all remember, I mean, I got a random email a couple of months ago from someone who was offering a job in Asia or something. It was something that I didn't want to do, but I haven't sat down with him for like 2 years. I sat in a meeting with him once, and he remembered me because he was like, oh, I remembered you were really technically aware. And he thought of me and emailed me. And I just think that just always come across to everybody like they might be a potential employer, because they probably will be. And do a lot of sociable drinking with them as well.
But I agree on always having a lovely smile and a good conversation, because I often have people come up to me at trade shows asking me to go and design for them. I won't leave Jane Macau, I promise, but it does happen, and that I think is because I smile at them and have a really good conversation with them.
Well, I think that's a lot of information, I'm sure. Thank you, panel members.